G6 is one of the most extraordinary vehicles in the game, but it's not only about the looks. The gameplay is also unusual because this SPG is dangerous even for those opponents who are safely hidden behind a corner or a hill. It's all because of the ammunition the vehicle uses. I am talking about massive rounds that can detonate automatically at the right moment and destroy an opponent's vehicle without even touching it. But let's start from the beginning. As soon as you unlock this SPG, you will use its default high explosive round. It's a huge 45 kg projectile that has an unusually high muzzle velocity of almost 900 meters per second. If other tanks that primarily use high explosive rounds have difficulties hitting distant opponents, for G6 it's simple. When this round reaches the opponent, over 11 kilograms of TNT equivalent of explosives detonate, sending the parts of that vehicle all around the map, and the player, in one piece but slightly disappointed, is sent to hangar. But designers of this vehicle thought that it wasn't enough. One of them came up with an interesting idea, and he said, "One day, in a game called War Thunder, there will be a player named HowToPlay1337 who is really bad at aiming, and he never hits his targets. So we need to add proximity sensor to this round." I'm not sure if that conversation really happened, I'm not a historian, but it sounds pretty realistic to me. So after a little bit of shooting and a couple of broken keyboards, you'll finally unlock exactly the same round, but with proximity fuse. It activates when two conditions are met. First, the round must travel at least 300 meters, and second, the round must pass within 3 meters of the vehicle. That unlocks new ways to destroy opponents' vehicles. For example, you know those annoying hiders behind hills, who show up for a second, shoot their cannon and hide back to safety? Well, it's no longer called safety as long as your round can still pass close enough above them. Round detonating above the opponent makes less damage than direct impact, but still powerful enough to destroy less protected tanks. Fun fact: broken hit camera that shows bottom of the tank indicates that the round detonated mid-flight above the tank. And now I have good news and bad news. The good news is all kinds of vehicles trigger the fuse. So with this round, G6 becomes quite good at destroying opponents' air targets. The bad news is all kinds of vehicles trigger the fuse, including your allies. If there is your team member more than 300 meters away and you want to hit the tank behind it, the fuse will detonate above your friend. It doesn't have serious consequences as your ally won't receive any damage, but it simply wastes your shot and you will have to reload for almost 15 seconds, even with a screw. Bonus bad news: since your rounds still detonate on impact, trees or fences between you and your target still act as additional protection for your opponents, and G6 doesn't even have a machine gun to clear those bushes. All the clips that you saw are where I was lucky, when explosion destroyed the opponent's tank instantly. But there are even bigger amount of clips where the damage wasn't so good. For example here, when the explosion destroys a track, or here when it destroys optics, or here where only the cannon was destroyed. Did I say cannon? No, that would be TOP, I mean machine gun. Hits like these happen in War Thunder all the time with all kinds of vehicles, but when you have such a long reload, it's a different story. I mean, look at this BMP. You know what 11 kilograms of TNT did to it? Tracks were damaged. One track. Gameplay with this vehicle is not some click a button, miss your target, but still destroy it anyway. No, it's suffering. I felt mental pain. And the reload is not the only problem, there are more. First of all, the slow vehicle has to be brought to firing position. Technically the maximum speed is good, up to 85 kph, but you won't reach it even on road because there are no such roads that would be long and straight enough. Additionally, this is a wheeled vehicle, so as soon as you end up on soft terrain, vehicle speed will drop significantly. Spoiler alert, there are maps that are fully covered in snow or sand. And sometimes you have to drive uphill on such soft terrain, which drops the speed of this SPG to less than 10 kph, even when the slope is not so steep. In situations like these, you really start to value maps where both teams can shoot each other's spawn locations. Additionally, arriving at any firing position is not enough. It must meet the size requirements of this SPG. Ideally have some cover, but it cannot be a steep hill because G6 has a gun depression of only 5 degrees, and considering that turret's horizontal guidance is limited to 40 degrees to each side, it should be protected from opponents coming from vehicle's blind spot. For example, in city maps, narrow roads between buildings can act like a trap for this SPG. You might not even have enough space to turn around if someone attacks you from a direction where your turret cannot be turned. Even when opponents are in front of you, as soon as you miss a shot or the round deals no damage, opponents can simply drive towards you and there is nothing you can do while reloading. Just popping smoke and driving backwards and hope that opponent's speed forward is slower than your 8 kph reverse. Ideally, you want to have allies nearby so someone can hold opponents back while you are reloading and help with repairs, since you will be repairing a lot. This is how G6 gameplay feels. You drive on half of the map's slow vehicle towards some cover that must be a building or hill because anything smaller won't be able to hide you, turn SPG's hull towards opponents, and wait. You cannot go forward with your allies towards capture points because they are in the middle of the map where opponents can easily flank you. You cannot stay alone either because you will need some protection during reload. And then you suddenly notice an opponent, fire the cannon and get a hit message. And then you think, yes, it was worth it. This is what I signed for. And then hide for 15 seconds reload, enjoying the fact that opponent with broken track won't be able to rush your position. Of course, the G6 has a powerful round, and in some cases you will see opponent's tanks pieces flying around, but most of the shots will disappoint you. The vehicle has quite thin armor, around 10 to 20 mm. Technically, you are fully protected from small caliber machine gun rounds, and heavy MG bullets might ricochet from sloped plates, though everything more serious, such as SPAAs, 20mm autocannons or planes can easily penetrate this armor. At the same time, the vehicle is massive. It has 6 crew members, so it's not so easy to destroy. Commander and gunner who can both fire the cannon are sitting on opposite sides of the turret, so sometimes you can shoot back at opponent even if he opened fire first. While driver's location, in addition to vehicle's design, gives a good advantage over regular tanks when exposing the side of the vehicle, because as long as you keep the front of the tank hidden where driver and engine are located, you will be able to move the G6 into cover. And unlike with tracked tanks, you still can move with a couple of blown tires. So the survivability of G6 is not so bad even if pretty much every vehicle can penetrate its armor. Big targets are easily spotted by planes, though I never found it to be a big issue, since G6 is quite good at anti-aircraft role. Incoming aircraft is relatively simple to hit with any type of round, but when your round has a 3 meters trigger radius, it becomes extremely simple and satisfying, since detonation of 11 kilograms of TNT equivalent of explosives near any aircraft either instantly destroys it or at least makes a critical damage that won't allow it to reach the airfield anymore. I wouldn't say that G6 is better than SPAs at taking down planes, because cannon's elevation of 75 degrees is not enough to hit planes right above you, and horizontal guidance restrictions forces you to turn the whole vehicle, which takes time and cannot always keep up with planes, but I have to admit that cannon elevates and turret rotates faster than I expected given their size. In arcade, the first thing you'll notice is that mobility becomes way better. Not like you are going to drive a lot on usually smaller maps in this game mode, but it's still pleasant. The second thing you'll notice is that you don't live long enough to destroy some tanks. Opponents will notice your name tag early and start shooting at you through various trees and walls, and you cannot do anything about it since your explosive rounds would detonate on every obstacle. At the same time, more people prefer to play heavy tanks in arcade, so your rounds will fail even more often. On a good note, you can see classification of opponents' vehicles, and if that's a light tank, you can quite reliably destroy them by shooting over them when you have a round with proximity fuse. But I had more success with those rounds when fighting planes. Pretty much every shot ends up dealing at least critical damage, since lead indicator makes aiming very easy. But at the same time, planes can easily penetrate SPG's thin armor, so even if you shoot one of them, another plane can destroy this vehicle before you finish reloading. Playing the G6 left me with mixed feelings. On one hand, it was great to see exploding tanks. Sometimes you don't even need to hit the tank directly. You are dangerous to every tank player who thinks they are safely hidden behind a hill, and every pilot who thinks that they are safe to fly low since there are no SPAAs. At the same time, I had to deal with poor maneuverability, long reload, restricted horizontal guidance, and a lot of hit messages. Explosive rounds have very unreliable damage. I would rate this SPG 4 rounds exploding above allies out of 10. This is not a usual tank. It has its strength, of course, but there are very serious downsides as well. I simply wasn't able to take advantage of what G6 has to offer because in most situations that happens in War Thunder, usual tanks are way more effective.